So I thought we could just do a bit of an update on the Ukraine situation.
Yeah.
A bit of a moment in time for anyone who's not paying attention, because there's been a few different things have gone on with the situation, although nothing sort of decisive particularly. So, well, where to begin? Last night there was yet more attacks on Kiev itself by the Russians, missile strikes, a few people killed, but right in the heart of Kiev. And so the Trump administration has been trying to broker peace ever since he got in, really, almost ever since he got in. So it's like a couple of months now. Yep. And it hasn't really got anywhere. But it seems mainly that the Ukrainian side are the issue. Well, Putin has said he's ready to make peace, make a deal.
Launch more missiles.
We're keeping the Donbass and the Crimea, but we're ready to talk at the peace table.
But, stop launching missiles then.
Well, there's...
it's a hard negotiation tactic.
Yeah,
But if it works, it works.
Well, there is it's very much a tactic, isn't it, to force people to the peace table, to the negotiation table. It doesn't usually work, but sometimes it does.
I suppose if you're...
force them to the table on your terms.
Right.
If you're literally bombing their capital, then maybe that would bring Zelensky to the table.
It's like if you beat someone down and you know that if you don't completely knock them out, they're going to keep fighting you. So you have to boot them in the head when they're on the ground. I mean, it's brutal.
Don't get into a fight with Bo, Jesus.
Oh, yeah.
Bo flashing back to his Essex days there.
Jesus Christ, Bo.
Many a fun Friday and Saturday.
One way to finish a fight is a curb stomp. That is one way to finish it.
That is true.
It's a bit Edward Norton of you, Bo.
Yeah.
With the shaved head as well.
Try and be a bit more honourable, Bo. Anyway, come on.
I've never done a curb stomp on anyone.
Oh, good to
or
know.
kicked them in the head while they're down or
He
anything
says
like that.
nervously, not once.
It hasn't been documented. There's no photos of it, so it didn't happen. No. All right, so let's see what happened. So Trump's position now, or Rubio, State Department, White House position is, at this minute, if you guys don't sort of start sorting something out, then America's just going to pass. It's going to sort of back out from trying to help or mediate the situation.
So they're going to cut off money and supplies.
Yeah, I guess so. Or just the mediation. They'll go to somewhere kind of neutral, whether it's somewhere in the Emirates or Paris or wherever it is, try and get people around a table and have talks about talks. Yeah. It's just going to stop doing any of that. I feel like it's, I don't know whether it's the art of the deal or anything like that, but just, it puts me in mind of when you're haggling with someone in a market, part of the strategy is to walk away.
Yeah.
Or make like you're going to walk away. And then they say, no, come back, we'll do a deal. I don't know, it's part of that.
Maybe. I've not been terribly impressed with Trump's strategy here so far, to be honest. I think Trump has kind of bungled a bunch of things diplomatically, actually, recently. And this is not going brilliantly. I don't know, just my opinion.
No, it's certainly stalling, if nothing else. The least you can say is it's stalled. Well, I don't know if it seems like... Well, the thing is, about Ukraine, I've heard Zelensky say, and I'm sure he's not lying, that it's actually in their constitution that the president can't concede big portions of their land. Like, legally, he's not allowed to. So if the negotiating strategies are that we can make a peace, but you've got to give up on Donbass and the Crimea, he's saying his hands are tied. He's saying, I can't do that.
So what kind of a stupid constitution is that? It's like putting it in your constitution. Well, it says here in the constitution we're not allowed to lose wars.
Right, yeah.
So we'll have to just keep going forever.
Yeah.
Brilliant, because unless Russia decides to go for complete, like we did in World War II, unconditional surrender, completely steamroll Ukraine over the course of years, then, yeah, if you're at the negotiating table, you're going to have a give and take.
Well, right, yeah. I mean, it's just the reality.
Ukraine has clearly lost this war. So.
The brutal reality is that on the battlefield, they've lost, the Ukrainians. I mean, they may not have lost the hearts and minds of some of the leaders in the European Union, but on the battlefield, it's done. Yeah. They're not getting the Crimea back.
Yeah.
They're not getting big chunks of the Donbass back. It's not happening.
And the thing is, I hate to say it, but a lot of the argument for it as well is kind of strange because they're mostly Russian people in these areas, which is why they've been like ethnic separatists, which is why the Ukrainians have been shelling them for years prior to all of this happening. And that's why the Crimeans so readily went over to the Russians. Crimea was like 90% Russian. So why do you have that? You know, why do you think, you know, and it's all about like, you know, administrative borders that Lenin drew back in like 1930 or something, right? So it's just like, look, this is just not sensible. Like, it's literally like people complaining, well, the British and the French divided up the Middle East by just drawing lines on a map. Yeah, that is the problem, rather than drawing around ethnic borders, which would have been more sensible. And this is the same kind of issue that's happening in Eastern Europe, isn't it?
Or at least after World War II.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, do you remember a few years ago, towards the beginning of the conflict, Putin had a vote or a plebiscite, whatever you want to call it, in that region, and it came back something kind of crazy, like 95% or 99% or whatever.
Yeah.
We want to be with Russia.
Yeah.
Now, I'm sure those numbers were massaged, but nonetheless, it reflects a reality of the people on the east of Ukraine consider themselves more Russian than Ukrainian.
100%. And we know that they do. And the thing is, do we think that there's no anti-Russian discrimination in Ukraine just outside of times of war? Like, I very much doubt it.
There's a long history there.
Oh, God,
Exactly,
yeah,
right.
long history.
And
yeah.
a big ethnic inferiority complex on the part of the Ukrainians. Because I looked into this a while ago. You can legitimately consider the Ukrainians a sort of separate ethnic group to the Russians. They're very closely tied, but their language is different enough that it's not necessarily mutually intelligible, right? So, like, if you listen, you know, for us, for example, if you see a French sentence, you'll probably be able to pick out one or two words that you can identify because they've got a similarity with English words. But Ukrainian is basically the same with Russian, right? There's been a long enough period of distinction so they can genuinely claim to be a separate ethnic group, and they clearly identify as a separate ethnic group. So why would the Russians be like, oh yeah, we want to be with those guys? It's like, no, you can see why the Russians would want to be with Russia.
Well, it's an extremely long and storied narrative. I mean, could quite literally go back to the 8th century.
Well, literally like Putin did when he was being interviewed by Carlson, yeah.
And me and Apostolic Majesty did a long form bit of content talking about that interview and going back to the 8th century and things. But if you want to just start in the 20th century, I mean, or even post-war, in Solzhenitsyn's work, the Gulag Archipelago, quite often, from time to time, he'll talk about the Ukrainians and their animosity towards Russians, or Soviets as it was then. So, yeah, they're sort of a bit like, in a very, very broad sense, the relationship between the English and the French, or the English and the Scots, or the English and the Irish.
Well,
it's
no,
like,
I don't know. I think
they're
it's worse.
neighbours, but it's worse. It's worse.
Way worse, because like
but it's just they've been at each other's throats since time immemorial.
But the thing is that there's a kind of ethnic domination between the Russians and the Ukrainians that doesn't exist between the French and the English, or the Germans and the French, right? Because they're roughly like powers of equal parity, right? Like, so Germany could reasonably win a war against France, France could reasonably win a war against Germany, and they could view each other as basically as equals. But the Russians have always had this dominion over Ukraine that the Ukrainians, like, you know, in a way, like kind of like the way that some Indians feel about Britain, right? It's like, oh, that's the superior imperial power, and therefore we need to get one over on you. A lot of them probably have that kind of mentality, and so I can't imagine, like, being a Russian citizen in Ukraine, you'd be like, oh yeah, I'm going to get a fair shot here, right? Come on. It's as if it's not horrifically corrupt anyway, but it's like, it just doesn't make any sense to try and press these people into the same state, you know?
I mean, there's just so much baggage.
Yeah.
You know, going back to the Lenin era or the Stalinists, the Holodomor.
Yeah.
Just that one thing.
And yeah, and I just want to be clear, I'm not saying the Ukrainians don't have just cause to hate the Russians.
Oh, no, right, yeah, sure,
Absolutely,
sure.
they do.
Oh, yeah, right,
You know,
yeah.
But that's
absolutely
also
they do.
potentially more reason to not have Ukrainians governing a load of Russians who otherwise are just innocent civilians who might be the victim of repercussions dating back 100 years or more.
Yeah, or 1,000 years.
That they personally had nothing to do with.
Well, I agree, exactly. And so it just doesn't make any sense. Like, these should be ethnically distinguished states. And so the fact that Ukrainians are like, no, we're not letting go of all these Russian populated areas, like, but why do you want them, you know?
It's interesting when you look at World War II, the Eastern Front, the Ostfront in World War II, the back and forths completely across Ukraine, what is modern Ukraine. Yeah. There was like big battles between the Soviets and the Nazis for Kiev. both when the Nazis were going east and when the Soviets were coming west. Giant battles all around what is modern day Ukraine, and
The largest
it also
battles
had,
ever in history.
yeah, some of it, yeah. A lot of people have never even heard of them.
No.
Um,
But there was literally 6 million Russians and 3 million Germans stretching across 100 miles of plain fighting battles. It's like, God, what are we doing here, bro?
like the Kharkov pocket. There's so many. And that's just in the 20th century. So,
and even then, talking about the animosities between the Russians and the Ukrainians, even then, a lot of Ukrainians said, "Oh, great, we're being liberated."
Yes, yeah,
and loads of them signed up. I mean, there was that controversy a few years ago when the war first broke out, where the Canadian Parliament was celebrating the Ukrainian who'd fought
against the Russians,
and then everybody went SS.
Yeah, he joined the Nazis.
Yeah, but again, for them, they weren't fighting for the purity of the German race or anything. They were fighting because, hey, these guys have been genociding us for the past 20 years. So if these guys want to come in and liberate us, then we'll do it.
I've seen historians being like, well, actually the Germans probably would have done better because they didn't go in there with the intention of liberating Ukraine. And so they took loads of prisoners of war and stuff like that. And, the stories of thousands of Ukrainians following one German officer after being captured.
I mean, even 800,000... Even 800,000 Russians, ethnic Russians, joined their side as well. But there was some difficulties with all of that.
We're getting off topic, sorry.
I was just saying, one last thing I was just saying, when you look at the details of the Eastern Front, just for example, during World War II, you'd have sort of the Nazis and the Soviets, but then there were just massive partisan groups of Ukrainian nationalists who tried to fight against both sides. So anyway, back to the 2020s. The Americans are starting to say, or Trump's angle is now, maybe we'll just leave you to it then. If we've pulled all the levers we can, or within reason, maybe we'll just walk away and leave you to it. Because we gave the Ukrainians, under Biden, gave them all the help we possibly could. Silly amounts of money, silly amounts of military material, and it didn't work. On the battlefield, it didn't work. I remember the spring or summer offensive, I think 2 years ago now. And for me, I was thinking as sort of a military history amateur historian, they need to get some big wins this summer out of this. If they're not just going to completely lose. And they didn't. It didn't really go anywhere. It fizzled out. Yeah. And at that point, I think 2 summers ago now, at that point I was like, well, okay, it's done. You've got to come to the negotiating table at some point now, Ukraine. But they're holding out. They still don't want to. So anyway, it's in the news a bit that there was more stuff overnight. Trump's frustration.
And the thing is, Zelensky's in a bit of a tough position here as well because, okay, say he's the guy who loses the war and loses a fifth of Ukraine's territory or whatever it is. Well, that's hardly going to play well with the remaining Ukrainians, is it?
So, yeah, absolutely. So we all know that Zelensky has suspended elections. Yeah. Some are saying that's fair enough, they're in a state of war. Others are saying that's not cool. Yeah. You're acting now as some form of a dictator. But regardless of that, I don't think I've got the link, but I saw some soundings coming out of Ukraine that maybe he'll hold an election this coming summer. Maybe they'll get a new leader who gets elected on a ticket of going to the peace table. I don't know. We'll see. But suspending elections is, I mean, a lot of people did it during World War II, but it has to be a real sort of almost, if not an actual total war situation. For example, Lincoln didn't suspend elections during the American Civil War.
Did he not?
No.
Interesting.
No, he got re-elected in the middle towards the end of it.
How did he get the votes from the southern states?
We didn't.
Well, there we go.
No.
So did he, is it really an election? Sorry,
Well, I mean,
well, if you secede, you're not allowed in the electoral college anymore. I mean, what do you want?
I guess,
even with World War II, because of at the end of the war, when all of a sudden you're administering like Nuremberg or something, you kind of get the awkward situation of Churchill's just been voted out, so the guy who'd been administering the war on the English side for the past 5 years isn't isn't in power anymore. FDR dies, and you've got Truman in his stead. And then the only guy who'd really been all the way through the war was Stalin, because Hitler was already dead as well. So you get a load of random people and Stalin
And Satan himself.
cleaning it up.
Stalin's got to deal with Churchill and FDR. I mean, some people have...
And had FDR wrapped around his little finger.
Yeah. And now he's got, Truman and, what was it, Attlee, I suppose? Would it be?
Yeah, it would have been Attlee.
Stalin must have thought, these chumps.
It must have come across
now.
kind of pathetic to him. Yeah.
So...
Also, complicating the matters further, are America still trying to organise as part of this some kind of rare minerals deal?
Well, that's all part of it. That's all wrapped up in it.
Because the difficulties with that is when you see the maps of where all of the minerals, the most rare and precious ones that are most useful, are distributed, all the ones that you'd actually want are in the territories of Russian control now. So the question is going to be, is America, if they actually want these useful minerals, are they going to have to arrange their own separate deal at the same time with Russia, where they have some kind of permission to go into those territories?
That seems unlikely, doesn't it?
Yeah, because otherwise you're only getting kind of the rubbish stuff.
Yeah. There's a few different types of materials which America covets. And some of them are largely...
Is it going to be stuff like lithium and stuff?
Yeah, things like lithium, yeah. So I think lithium particularly is actually all over Ukraine, but still what you're saying is also true about other materials, but it's actually quite a complicated situation.
Shock and surprise, it's really complicated, like everything is.
From the State Department's point of view, though, it seems like they're running short of patience, at least with the Ukrainians. It's like this, they're basically saying you've got to come to terms with the fact you've lost...
This was a major campaign promise from Trump.
Yeah.
I'll end it on day one. Okay, we're 100 days later or whatever it is. And, Putin's shelling the capital. Is this over?
Well, you remember when Zelensky came to the White House and they had that press conference and it was pretty much Vance...
Didn't say please.
Yeah, that one. I mean, you can tell
Need
that...
to say please and thank you.
Yeah. What's the magic word, Vladimir? Say the magic word. It's just still going on.
Yeah.
And maybe not unfortunate, but just the reality is that the ball is in Ukraine's court to end this thing now. Yeah. Putin has said he's prepared to. America wants to...
I'm prepared to accept your concession.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, great, thank you.
I'm prepared to accept your surrender. Yeah. Right, yeah. Overnight, you actually see... we can watch it maybe because it's not explicit. It's a long range, but... it's buffering, but... you see missiles falling on sort of the middle of Kiev. Yeah. I don't know why people started calling it Kyiv.
Because that's the Ukrainian pronunciation.
But we've always called it Kiev.
I know.
But we don't say Paris, do we?
It's the same Paris. Thing where all of a sudden I've seen people spelling Turkey as like Turkiye.
Yeah. But it's to be culturally sympathetic to the Ukrainians.
Oh, there you go. Oof.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a big one.
Yeah, it's not great. It's not great.
And the thing is, I think you're basically right. At this point, holding out is just costing lives.
Yeah,
unnecessarily.
Yeah. You're just spending...
You can't win this.
Just spending the lifeblood of a generation pointlessly now.
Yeah.
What do you do? Do you fight down to the last man?
Right.
Oh, the Constitution says so, yes.
Apparently. We're not allowed to lose, it says here, actually.
Yeah. So it is sort of an unfortunate situation, of course. So Zelensky himself was on some sort of trip to South Africa, and he's drawn that to a close quickly, so he's flying back to Ukraine. This is all like today or this morning, or in the wee hours for us. He's trying to sort of shore up...
So what's he trying to get from South Africa?
Just diplomatic political support, really. Because his political support is dwindling, isn't it?
But what good is South Africa's political support? Like, they don't have any money to give you. I looked up South Africa's army the other day for some reason. They've got 38,000 men.
Maybe Operation Human Shield is in play.
No, not even
slightly. Strap South Africans to your tanks.
Their army is way, way smaller. It's too small.
I just think diplomatically, politically, the walls are closing in on Zelensky. Once the United States essentially, publicly, pulled back its support for him, then well, then his options are shrinking.
Yeah, well,
all over
It
the
would be
place.
strange after Donald Trump has been quite belligerent towards South Africa recently as well,
Yeah.
for him to then immediately try and go to them, when South Africa was where they were getting a lot of their rare minerals from before.
Yeah, absolutely. And sort of just the noises coming out of the White House are just basically putting more and more pressure, more and more blame for it not ending yet on the Ukrainians.
Yeah.
So yeah, Trump accuses Zelensky of jeopardising imminent peace deal.
Yeah.
Is the Guardian of all places.
Yeah.
The Zelensky just refuses to accept that he's lost Crimea.
Yeah, it's gone, bro. It was gone in 2014. It's
Yeah.
gone. It's 10 years later. It's gone.
Well, it was gone within 1 week.
Yeah, they took it really quick.
Yeah, immediately. It was the first thing they
Yeah,
did. You know, the little green men.
Yeah.
So that's it. It's done.
And it was
They're
a very surgical operation on part of the Russians.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. I get it's a bitter pill to swallow.
Yeah.
For the Ukrainians, I get it. But you've kind of you got to. What are you going to do?
Yeah, the military reality is the military reality.
What are you going to do? Keep assassinating Russian generals in the middle of Moscow? How are you going to keep doing that? Is that what you're going to do?
And I'm sure that won't provoke any other backlashes.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's nothing more they can do, I think.
Yeah, Trump and Putin are essentially on the same page now. It's like it's happened. It's a fait accompli.
Yeah, but I don't want to be sympathetic to the Russians at all, but why do you want a bunch of lands occupied by Russians? What good is that to you? I mean, this is why you've had problems with the Donbass. Is they're a bunch of separatists. They don't want to be ruled by you. You've been at war with this province. It's not going to go away. You know, I just don't see the sense in it.
I'd imagine it's a combination of national prestige and resources.
I
Yeah,
guess.
pride.
Yeah, I think it's more pride.
Pride comes before the fall. Yeah. So Trump accusing Zelensky of being boastful.
Really.
Yeah, went like, look, we can make a peace here. It's not the peace you want. It is a bit of a humiliating peace from your point of view, Zelensky. But what choice have you got?
Yeah.
Right. We're not going to go to war with Russia, the United States. We're not going to go to war with Russia for you over this.
I suspect
So
Russia actually
you're
has
me.
missiles that can deliver a payload, right?
Of course,
It's
yeah.
not, yeah,
Oh, right, of
I know.
course.
It's not Pakistan, is what I'm saying. You know what I mean? Like they know that their missiles can get to where they're going to go, and what are your options?
Yeah, you're running out of options. You're running out of time. So yeah, Putin said, you know, I'll accept your surrender any time, dude.
Yeah.
We're all just waiting for you.
But the thing is, Putin's not going to have like political instability by absorbing these provinces, because they're all going to be Russians.
Yeah.
And like the people in them have been asking for a union with Russia for a long time, right? So it's just like he's just going to get well ordered, you know, like peaceful provinces, or Zelensky will be at war with them in the future because of the ethnic conflict that would be intrinsic to them. So what are we doing here? You know, this just doesn't make any sense to me.
So it's just a bit of an update, a bit of a moment in time here
Yeah.
on the 24th of April 2025. We'll see how it goes. I mean, I still think, I think most people do, that there will be some sort of peace brokered over the next few weeks or months, or at least sort of ceasefires, at least sort of
It'd be
the
nice for an end to the killing.
large-scale killing to sort of stop, dropping missiles in the middle of Kiev,
Yeah, it's terrible.
and assassinations on both sides, and all that sort of thing. You know, let's just hopefully just end it as soon as possible. But the ball's in the Ukrainians' court, it seems, at this point.
If you would like to watch the full uncut version that is also uncensored, head on over to lotuseaters.com to find out more.